Hello, and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental enthusiast, Nic and Laura. On today's episode, we give our shout-outs, and post-conference, we wanted to slow down into something just fun for everyone. So Nic wants me to say it's impossible not to love this episode, but I'm not really going to do that.
Well, it's all about tigers. Come on, we gotta.
So yes, it will be impossible not to love this topic today. We sat down to interview Katie Cannon, the educational director at Carolina Tiger Rescue, about the exotic pet industry, Tiger King, and the joy of taking a good nap. And finally, on this day in science in 1916, daylight savings time was introduced in Britain as a wartime measure to save fuel. The idea began when a London builder, William Willett, presented a scheme of shifting the clock to better use of hours of daylight in the summer. So we can all thank William for that.
What a turd. I'm so mad at that guy.
Right? Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Hit that music.
Our shout out today comes from David Tomasco, a TBAEP member and executive director with the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program. He recently shared a project award where Sarasota County took the lead on a project coordinated with the partners from the City of Sarasota, the Southwest Florida Water Management District, and the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program to act on untreated urban stormwater runoff into the Hudson Bayou, an important feature along the eastern shoreline of Sarasota Bay. This award-winning and recently completed project involved the diversion of existing discharges of urban stormwater runoff into offline constructed wetlands filters and sediment pumps, and is expected to keep over 30 tons of sediment from reaching Sarasota Bay each year.
Woohoo.
That's pretty wild. That's awesome. Be sure to share your promotions, new jobs, professional, and product awards with us on the EPR website. And if you'd like to sponsor a future episode, head on over to environmentalprofessionalsradio.com and check out our sponsor form for details. Okay, let's get to our segment.
Sorry, I went ahead and fed the cats also, just to get that out of the way.
No worries.
Should have done it before we started, but I was watching Little House on the Prairie.
I knew it. I knew you were. I'm not even remotely surprised. That's so funny. Yeah.
Everything I Am is that show. Like this show, the episode today was about one of the adopted sons to Mr. Edwards, who was a very manly man.
Okay. Like myself. Okay.
Like raised in the woods kind of guy.
Yeah.
But the son is like, he likes to read and he's reading poems and writing and stuff. And he's like forcing him to go hunting. And they're both like, Mr. Edwards can't read, but the kid doesn't know that. So the kid wants Mr. Edwards to be more like him, but doesn't know that he doesn't even know how to read. So he doesn't understand. And then he wants him to go hunting. Well, essentially, Mr. Edwards gets attacked by a grizzly, not a grizzly bear, it's a black bear. So, who then just steals his food, didn't kill him. But the son couldn't shoot the bear, even while he was being attacked. So,
right.
I'm like, that's me. I couldn't kill a thing. I think I would just stand there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was I vegetarian before I watched this, or am I vegetarian because I watched this?
Well, yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny. That actually made me think of, like my wife's job. Like a lot of what people don't understand about what she does is that, tigers eat meat, right? Like, so she's got to butcher animals that come in. Like they get a lot of their meat from hunters, who donate deer, which is actually a really cool thing that they do. And they're like, oh, we don't need, we're not going to eat all this meat here. You guys take it. I donated a deer once when we hit it on I-4.
Yeah.
And so like they'll actually, they'll take deer if you hit it and you see it get hit and it dies, like they don't take it if it's just on the side of the road because they have to make sure that it's fresh. But like she has, it's honest to God. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. Like I'd go to work with her for the first time and she's like, oh, I'm just going to butcher this deer real quick. And like she just lifts the leg, boom, 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 3 swipes and the leg's off. It's off. Like I'm looking at that deer leg, looking at my own leg, this is
That's my problem. I see we all have eyes, mouth, nose, ears, brains. I don't see a difference.
Well, I'm much more worried she's going to use it on me. Like, because like, because I'm like one dumb phrase away from like disappearing off the face of the earth. You know what I mean? Like it's the joke, right? I don't get divorced. I get disappeared. And, but yeah, like it's crazy. So she can do that, no problem, right? There's some people that cannot butcher. And to her, once the animal is dead, it's no longer in pain, and she can do what she needs to do to make sure these other animals are fed and taken care of. But she could never kill it. She could never, ever do that. It's just something she can't do, you know? And I get it. Like there's a line, you know, that I think everybody has.
I don't know if I could. I mean, you telling me that story makes me think, oh my God, I don't think I could. But I did work at the Lowry Park Zoo in Tampa and, you know, I was in the Florida Mammals Department. So I fed the kestrels mice and, you know, other gross things. But I don't think I could dismember something. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean, it is a bit haunting. Like, I mean, she actually she does like to play tricks on me every now and then. And she did, she's like, Nick, can you go in the freezer real quick and just grab the bananas for the kinkajous we've got, you know? And I'm like, okay, you said a lot of words in there, but I understood banana, so I got it. And so, yeah, I go in there and there's 3 dead deer on the floor, and one of them had just been skinned. And so, like, you know,
dear Lord, nope, can't do it.
Hey, dear Lord, I see what you did there. That's funny. No, but like I opened the freezer, like, oh my God. Yeah, right.
They're watching.
Like, right. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be in here, right? This is what she does, duh. Right. You know, so but she got me. Like I walk out of the freezer and she's got that grin on her face, like, yeah, I heard you.
That's some serious stuff. We had Florida panthers and they got fed rabbits or chickens. We weren't feeding them deer.
So yeah, and you know, they actually do feed them chickens as well. That's actually most of their diet. But you know, tigers are much bigger than
that's true. Yeah,
than pumas, like, you know, or mountain lions, whatever you want to call them. Cougars, they're like 3 times the size of those things. Sometimes it's crazy how big they are. So like the big tigers will get 3 chickens a day. The smaller ones will get 2. And like I think you know, she'll tell me how wrong this is later, but I think the cougars get 1.
No, she won't, because you know she's not listening.
Right. She's definitely listening to the show, always, every time she tells me how great I am. She keeps me grounded. That's the safest way to put that, actually, in case she does listen. Yeah, so it's just funny. So, but like a deer is kind of like a nice treat, right? Like a deer leg is about the size of a chicken or, you know, something like that, you know. The torso and head and neck is actually a treat for them sometimes. So it's kind of a neat little side thing that they give.
Okay, so I have like so many questions. You know, and you know, remember I volunteered at Big Cat Rescue for a year or so.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of stuff. I don't remember us feeding them deer, but maybe, I don't know. I was just the person handing it out. I wasn't the person preparing it. So who knows? But I did see one person who let her guard down for a sec. Well, she didn't really let her guard down. She just didn't follow the rules. Like she picked, I think it was a banana peel, and she dangled it in front of one of the Florida panthers. And before you could tell what happened, it had, or maybe it was an ocelot. It was a long time ago. So, but she had her arm sliced, and before you could blink,
I know. Yeah.
It just reached out and clawed her. It was crazy.
People do not understand. They just can't understand. And it's, you know, like a Carolina tiger rescue, you have to, like, one of their main rules is you can't walk next to the fence for that exact reason. Because they can, you know, smaller animals can stick their paws out and, you know, and injure you. And it's just one of those things that you can't do. Like, people just have no concept of how strong and how quick animals are. They really don't.
So I'm super excited to talk to Katie about all these things. And I want to know, like, why do you have to skin it? Don't they know how to do that themselves?
oh man, that's a good answer. I'll let her answer that. Like, I know the it's a good. Yeah,
I want to know.
Yeah, it's funny.
I morbidly want to know, which is strange, but so many things. I mean, I only worked at Big Cat Rescue for, like I said, a year, and have so many stories and so many cool things that happen, but also some like, whoa, you know. But the biggest takeaway is, like, don't bring wild animals into your home. I see so much of this on Instagram now with the reels and stuff. And it's all, because I like a lot of stuff with animals, but I see a lot of stuff that I'm like, this is awful. Monkeys in people's homes. And like, it's just, don't do it.
I know. Well, I mean, okay. So you talked about, I mentioned kinkajous before, right? And like, nobody knows what those are. It's technically a primate, or not a primate. It looks like a primate, but it's technically a carnivore, and they're actually frugivores. They eat fruit. But yeah, so these animals look super cute, right? They're adorable. And if you look up what a kinkajou looks like, and you're like, oh yeah, it's really cute. And on their hands, they have daggers instead of fingernails, right? And so they can literally mess you up. So at Carolina Tiger Rescue, they give everything a threat level. It's like a 1 through 4. whether it's, not dangerous to dangerous. So 4 is the highest you can be. That's what the tigers and the pumas, the cougars are. And so are the kinkajous for that reason. They're incredibly quick and they have daggers on their hands. And so they can genuinely harm you very easily. So Katie could probably say that more eloquently than I just did. But yeah.
Well, sometimes it's the smaller animals that have those like vicious defense mechanisms.
Of course.
That, they have a cute face, but then they'll tear yours off.
Right. Yeah. And
which I think my other cat is like that.
Well, it is strange though, because you tell people like, you shouldn't have a tiger as a pet. And, and it seems like that's a no-brainer, right? But even like just thinking about it logically, right? Like every person who's ever owned a cat has been scratched by their cat, right? Every single person.
Yep.
Right? It's just unavoidable. Now imagine it's a tiger, right?
No
like,
way.
Even if everything else is the same, and that, which is not true, right? Because they're still wild animals, but you'd still be injured. You could still be seriously injured by an animal that's not even trying to injure you.
Right.
Because they're that big. They can lean on you and break your fingers.
Oh, yeah. The biggest one they had at Big Cat Rescue when I was there was 800 pounds.
Yeah, that's a big boy. That's a big boy. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
But yeah, this is great. But let's save some for Katie because I got so much more. And obviously primates versus whatever's. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So let's.
Yeah. Hello and welcome back to EPR. We're here today with Katie Cannon of Carolina Tiger Rescue, which is a pretty fun, cool place. I might be a little biased about it. Yeah. But it's something a little new and different for you guys. We thought it'd be really fun to have her on and tell us a little bit about herself and the organization. So, Katie, with that, tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Carolina Tiger Rescue.
Yeah, I am Katie Cannon, the Education Director at Carolina Tiger Rescue. We are the only federally accredited wildcat sanctuary in North Carolina and the only one that's accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries. And what we do is we rescue primarily wildcats. We have a couple other species as well, but primarily wildcats from all over the country. These animals have been privately owned. They have been exploited in cub petting ventures. They have been found on the side of the road. Wow. Any number of things that you can think of, these guys have been through. And we provide them with a lifelong home. They get to stay with us forever.
So cool.
So like you say, found on the side of the road. What's that story?
So we had 2 tigers back in 2005. These guys, we named them Raja and Kayla, and they were about 6 months old when they were found. They were found on the side of the road outside of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, gosh.
Just wandering.
Wow. Like they do. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, 6 months old, 60 pounds each already.
Jeez.
And luckily, an off-duty police officer came upon them, stopped traffic both ways. To me, the best part of the story, aside from them being rescued and getting to call us home, by the time animal control realized the cop was serious, and
I was going to say, who believes this person?
Yeah.
The dispatcher took a while. We actually have the 911 call. The dispatcher took a while to believe him. But by the time that animal control got out there, Raja was sunning himself in the middle of one lane. It was in January. On one side of the yellow lines, putting him in one county, and Kayla was half a mile up on the other side, putting her in a different county. So two different animal controls had to come out and pick them up.
Of course.
And then they spent some time at the North Carolina Zoo and then came to us when they were about 8 or 9 months old.
Oh, wow. And that's a good segue. So what's the difference between a zoo and a wildlife sanctuary then?
Yeah, so zoos, your accredited zoos, unfortunately, like the word sanctuary, zoo gets thrown around and everybody thinks they're created equal, which they, of course, are not.
Right.
So your accredited zoos primarily, of course, are looking at education and are educating the public, but they're also looking to save specific species. So they do breeding based on species survival plans and work with zoos across the country and sometimes in other countries to help save that species. Whereas at a sanctuary like us, we don't do any breeding. None of our animals can help save the genetic population because they're not any particular subspecies. So oftentimes we get asked, well, what kind of tigers do you have? And I'm like, orange. They're orange. They have black stripes. So they're essentially what we would consider like mutt tigers. They're just And most of them, or a good majority of them, have been inbred, or there's just no known documentation on their genetics. So they're not going to help that subspecies. So yeah. And then once our guys, a lot of times, this isn't always the case, but a lot of times zoos don't necessarily want rescues. Rescues come with behavior problems and they come with medical problems.
Right.
And so we, whereas a zoo may have hundreds, if not thousands of animals, currently we have 47.
Right.
And our goal is to ensure that we have what we need to care for those 47 and any others that come our way, but we'll never have hundreds of animals. That's just not the way we do it. That's not fair. That's a lot of money
Right.
that is required. So, yeah.
So awesome that they have some place to go.
Absolutely.
It's so needed. And to have a place that's actually caring and not, what we used to call a menagerie. And
right. Yep.
So you mentioned that there's some other animals that you have there. What other animals do you have?
So we have 10 species currently. We have 8 species of cats, and we have tigers, lions, a leopard, caracal servals, an ocelot, bobcats, cougars, and I lost count, so I may be forgetting somebody.
Is it kinkajous, you guys?
So then we have our 2 species that aren't cats, that are the kinkajous and the coatamundi, and they're members of the raccoon family. I like to think of that raccoon family as a continuum. You have your raccoons in the middle, which would be, as far as aggression, which would be like, I'm going to scurry away, but I'm going to show you my teeth and tell you I'm not happy about it.
Right.
And then you have your coatamundis, which I've actually had the pleasure of seeing down in Costa Rica, that are pretty curious, and they have a long snout and they're just fascinating little creatures. Mm-hmm. And they're a little more docile. And then we have our kinkajous that are on the other side of that continuum that will rip your face off given the opportunity to do so. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That sounds lovely.
6 pounds of pure fury.
Right.
How did you get that critter?
So we actually have 4 of them right now. We started as a breeding facility back before Dr. Michael Blyman was a geneticist over at UNC, and his idea, and this was before species survival plans came into play and were designed. And so he was breeding small carnivores, primarily your ocelots, your caracals, your servals, and also kinkajous. And then this crazy looking one, the binturong, which is from Southeast Asia. That smell like Fritos and popcorn, but not like a fresh bag of Fritos, like a bag of Fritos been sitting out in the rain. So one of our kinkajous is from that breeding program. We stopped breeding back in 2001. And then the other 3 used to be pets. Lola was found in somebody's garden in High Point, just sleeping, lethargic.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And then Wednesday is our oldest animal. She's, I think, 32 or 33 now. And she was rescued back in 1988. And then Baxter is our most recent kinkajou. And somebody had him over in Asheville. She had acquired him when she felt like she needed something to take care of. And he was cute and helpless. And then he was cute and not helpless.
Yeah.
So she gave him up. He was extremely aggressive. She showed us scars on her hands and all that from where he had bitten her. So yeah.
I get so frustrated seeing all these cute videos and reels on Instagram now. I feel like, if Instagram and Twitter want to be responsible and take certain political things down, I think they should be taking off pictures of people owning these exotic animals. But that's just my opinion.
Right there with you.
Yeah.
There with you.
I think the animal trade is actually, it's a really crazy business. Like, I know there's a wild stat going on, and maybe you can help me get it right. There's more tigers in Texas than there are in the wild. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it's estimated. Sorry, my dog here is rubbing his back on the carpet, and so he makes a little noise. Sorry.
No worries.
Best day ever. We're at home. So it's estimated that there's between 5,000 and 10,000 tigers in the United States. The reason why it's an estimate is because there's no national database. So if you think about it, you have to register your cat or your dog. They're supposed to get rabies shots every year. That is documentation and documented. Yeah, there's no national, and it's state by state. So North Carolina is one of 4 states where there are no laws against owning exotic species. So we don't know how many tigers are in North Carolina, hence why 2 were found on the side of the road back in 2005.
Yeah.
And then it is estimated. So it's actually legal with permits in Texas to own tigers. And just recently in San Antonio, there was a young teenager who went outside to look for his missing dog and found a tiger.
Oh.
And his neighbor had borrowed it from a friend to show his family.
Oh my gosh.
And the tiger had jumped over his fence and then a couple fences over. And there's video of it.
Oh my gosh.
And luckily they were able to capture that tiger. And then the authorities came in and were like, so about that. And it's just one of those things, it's not regulated. So it's difficult to determine how many there are. There's no number. And a lot of people, get up in arms about the tiger farms out over in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
We have no room to talk. They at least have an idea of how many tigers are on their tiger farms, whereas we have no national laws, which is not surprising. I don't know if you know, but the drinking age of 21 is not a national law. It's just all states decided to make it their state law. So
I didn't know.
Passing national laws around here is near impossible.
Right.
So it's scary. There's a lot of people out there who say that's not true. And it's like, well, but it's going to be pretty close to being true. Of those 5,000 to 10,000 tigers, 96 of them are in the hands of private owners, roadside zoos, or the entertainment industry, not in accredited facilities like ours. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know. I went on a photography sightseeing trip once, and we just went down a random road and found tigers in Florida.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They were in like it was like a giant dog pen. It wasn't even in like an enclosure. It was just like, here's the box that I'm in.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that, quirkiness of laws is something that we've talked about on the show before, but this is one of my favorites, whereas you can own a tiger in North Carolina, but you can't own a box turtle. Like, that's illegal. That makes me laugh. That's crazy.
We had a big rescue back in 2016. We rescued 16 animals from our roadside zoo in Colorado, and we were able to get the 8 tigers, leopard, 2 caracals, a serval, and 2 coatimundis across over into North Carolina before we could get the 2 bobcats because they're native species. So we had to have special permits to house them. So we have more paperwork on our 3 bobcats and 2 cougars than we do our 13 tigers.
That's wild.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got to ask you this, and I know this comes up a lot. The pandemic started and the only thing people had to watch was Tiger King. And so are there challenges you guys have dealt with because of the show? Like, I know Carolina Tiger is a much different place, but it's, than, what was shown on Tiger King. But how does that relate?
But let me chime in because Tiger King, the show, is different than Big Cat Rescue itself. I actually volunteered there.
Yeah.
That show was actually a discredit to, I think, wildlife sanctuaries all over the place. Like, that was just that. Let's just separate the two. That was drama versus reality. But we're going to focus on your place here. But yeah, I worked there, so I'm really interested to hear more about your place.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. They had a perfect opportunity to shed light on a major problem here in the United States, and they wasted it. They took it and they said, oh, here are these eccentric people. Let's just make this as wild and crazy as possible. In terms of us, it actually came out the weekend, and then we closed down to the public like the Tuesday after. So I did watch it just as knowing I would get lots of questions about it. I think the worst part for me, there was nothing in there that I wasn't aware of in terms of the roadside zoo and the cub petting industry. I think witnessing the hardest part was witnessing them in Oklahoma just sliding that newly born cub right under that fence and taking it immediately from its mother. I think there's one thing to hear about it and another thing to witness it. And had they taken the opportunity to actually focus on what happens in that trade, the speed breeding of those tigers and what happens to those cubs. We have several animals that used to be or were bred initially for cub petting. One of our most well-known is Capriccio. He's our heaviest tiger at 460 pounds. And he has metabolic bone disease. So he went from 2 to 3 pounds at birth to over 400 pounds in just over 2 years. And because he wasn't given the proper nutrients and because he was taken from mom, he grew big, but he didn't grow strong. So he has arthritis at 10 years old, already in his back knees, and his conformation is all off. And, his life expectancy is not going to be as long as those who weren't in that because of what he's dealing with already. So we just 2 weekends ago were able to sedate him and get injections into his knees. He had to lubricate those joints and all that to help prevent any further damage and to lessen the potential pain for him. So, so we've been affected indirectly by that. We've gotten lots of questions. It's provided a really good learning opportunity for us to help educate the public. The problem is we've also gotten those of asking ridiculous questions that have nothing to do with any of it, Right. And it is unfortunate because it painted one of our sister sanctuaries with Big Cat Rescue in the not so good light. And now, they had also closed down because of the pandemic, but also they're now a little worried to open back up. I mean, that's unfortunate because that's going to affect how many and what they can rescue as well. So big bummer on the director's part. They wasted a incredible opportunity, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it is. I agree. I think that there's so many documentaries now on veganism and, what's really happening. The DuPont one, like maybe they'll come around and make another season or something. Not another season, but a different show that I'll just put it out there to Amazon and Hulu. We'd like to see a new show that focuses on what the real problem is.
Yeah. We've worked with a couple. There was National Geographic just put out, and only because I've watched it, Trafficked. They have a podcast too, but they focus more on the realities of cub petting and trafficking of these guys. And then also we were part of a documentary that was filmed a couple of years ago and it just came out. Now I think they're looking for potentially a streaming service to pick it up called Hidden Tiger. And so the good guys are out there trying to tell the story. It's a matter of hopefully people waking up and understanding, oh, this is a problem and this is something that I need to watch to educate myself versus being entertained. There's plenty of entertainment out there. Yeah. So hopefully they are out there. Hopefully they'll get picked up and hopefully it'll become more widely known. I think it was, we've seen several facilities close down since then, and not necessarily because of that, but it is, I think people are waking up to it and understanding it is a big problem. So, but we got a lot of work to do. I have job security for a while, for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of jobs, you were a teacher before. How'd you get into this and how long have you been doing it?
So I actually have a degree in special education and I taught 3rd through 5th grade over in Raleigh. And then I was injured by a student through no fault of his own, but I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I enjoy educating people. I enjoy educating people, but I like to educate people on the things that I like, not the 5 different ways to solve a math problem. So,
although I find it interesting, you were injured by a student.
It was
working with tigers.
Yeah, I had to. I think Nick and I have talked about this. I had to have 2 surgeries on my hand after that. Yeah. So yeah, super unfortunate. But so I had gone for a tour at the rescue and fell in love, and as most people do, but it was one of those of like, I want to do this. And then I helped out with camp the following summer, and it was exhausting and it was hot. And then every day when I left, I was like, I can't wait to go back tomorrow. And my boss always jokes because I had applied for the job and I was offered the job in August of 2014 and I turned it down. Oh. And then I went back to the classroom and that's when I was injured and I emailed her and I said, so about that job. So she always jokes that she's like, I offered it to her twice. She finally took it. So, so I've been there 6 years.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. I've been there 6 years. It's one of those that it's, to sound all mushy, it's very humbling to be able to help the biggest cat species and these apex predators who shouldn't need your help, but they do. And it's Yeah, it's super corny, but you just fall in love with them. And I'm in awe every day seeing them, and they suck you in and they break your heart, but you're doing what you're supposed to. So
yep, I totally get it. I mean, when I volunteered at Big Cat Rescue, it was like, I think I drove 45 minutes or longer. I had to go across a bridge, everything there's over a bridge. So I had to get over a bridge and be there in time for feeding in the morning at like 6 a.m. or whatever. And
yeah.
I think I have a tattoo on my arm of big cats. So I love it. I get it. And I know from the time I worked there, like I saw some really crazy things. And Nick was telling me about some of the stuff he's seen in visiting the place.
I think you can only believe half of what he said.
Hey, it's all true, 100%.
Like here's the truth. Here's how Nick tells it.
Right. So I sort of had like two questions for you. One, I don't remember at Big Cat Rescue feeding anything other than maybe anything bigger than a chicken. I could be mistaken, but I don't remember seeing deer parts laying around.
That was the truth.
Hey, I did it.
So what goes into feeding and taking care of these animals?
A strong stomach. And so, we feed our big cats 5 days a week. In the wild, they're not going to eat every day. So we mimic some of that fasting through fasting 2 days a week. It's never 2 consecutive days. They always have 2 feeding days between a fasting day and So it's going to depend on the cat, how much they eat. Capriccio, that big guy, he eats about 18 pounds of food 5 days a week. Man. And at one point to help keep some weight on him, it was 6 days a week, but I can't remember at this point if he's back down to 5 or whatever. So it's a very fluid thing, which I'm sure it was a big cat too, is if they look like they're not getting enough, if they're being a little too lazy, we'll drop back on their food a little bit. If they're up and moving more, then we'll up it a little bit to keep them at the prime weight. But we feed primarily chicken and turkey, but we also have hunters and farmers who will bring us deer or livestock. We never take anything that's healthy. In terms of livestock, it might be a cow who died during calving, that kind of thing. We're not in the business of taking a cow or something because you don't want it anymore.
Oh, that's good.
Because, but it's extremely helpful. Our food budget's about $80,000 a year. But in the last couple of years, we've only had to spend between $8,000 and $10,000 of that due to all the donations that we get.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which is really awesome. So I would say at first it was a little off-putting to see them butcher. I have helped butcher before. Usually I will help when, one, they don't have enough volunteers to help get through it, and 2, they have a lot of time to help me know what I'm doing because I'm really slow. But God, the keepers can knock it out real quick.
It scares me to this day.
A little bit. I always stay on their good side because they know what they're doing. So.
I have this morbid question though, because Nick mentioned he saw skinned deers. Okay, so this is but my question is, can't the tigers just do that? Why do you have to skin them?
So we'll skin them occasionally, and then sometimes we'll give them the whole thing. So it's just going to be dependent on the animal. Because we have animals that sometimes we joke that they need to be coddled. And so we have to sometimes feed them small pieces on a treat stick so that they'll eat. Some of them can't digest the pelts as easily. And so we'll go ahead and take that pelt off. Sometimes we will take it off and use it as enrichment at a later date so that they can have something new and exciting. So it's all just dependent. It's dependent on what it is. Our guys are not we have a few that are not overly fond of goats and sheep. And so sometimes we'll take that pelt off to make it a little easier, or we'll take the wool off to use as enrichment later. So it's all very interesting and it changes day to day. I'll go out and be like, but why are we doing it this way today? And they're like, because of this. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't see that coming. Okay. Right. So they get pretty picky. So it's nice to be able to vary their diet as well so that they don't get, bored.
I'm going to ask you a really broad question about funny things that have happened. I know there's 1,000 funny stories. And so we don't have enough time to cover them all, but maybe there's one that sticks out in your mind that you want to share with us here.
So Yeah, I was thinking about that, and it's true. Most of the time, the funny stuff doesn't even relate to the animals. It's the awesome and ridiculous people that I work with. But one thing that I have yet to live down, and I don't think I ever will, is I can't remember if it was Mona or Moki. There were these older, well, at the time they weren't old. They were probably 16 or 17, but our smallest tiger is about 210 pounds max. And one of them, I can't remember which one, they lived together. So we had to knock her down, and it was one of my first knockdowns, and knocking down means sedating for a medical procedure. So
okay, yeah, that's not what I was like. What?
Right. Yeah. Sorry. I have to explain that to my parents, and I've been working there 6 years. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, no. It's not. So I was down at the hind end of her helping, and our vet was up at the front. She had something going on with her mouth or her ear or something like that. And suddenly I saw her back foot move. And so I stood up, but I was like, because that's not supposed to happen. And then suddenly they put something in her ear, and it, you know how it kind of drains down the back of, like it drained down the back of her throat. And she lifted her head and shook her head. And suddenly, and they gave her more propofol, which helped her go back to sleep. And nobody was worried except for me, apparently. And suddenly they look around, and I'm nowhere to be found, except I was behind my boss, Catherine, who was up closer to the bitey end of it. And they looked at me and they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I mean, she lifted her head. And they were like, well, what'd you come to the front end for? I was like, I said, well, first of all, Catherine was going to save me. And second of all, that was closer to the door because I was out of there. But they still give me a hard time because they were like, yeah, you were at the safer end at her hind end versus the front end where our vet and the keeper was. And nobody else flinched. And I was like, yeah, that tiger lifted its head. I was not sticking around with that. So
I mean, it makes sense to me.
I know what I'm doing.
Katie's a smart one here, by the way.
Yeah. Why are you giving me a hard time? Y'all all sit there.
Kind of related to that, we were talking earlier about some of the stuff I saw when I was volunteering at Big Cat Rescue. And have you witnessed any just like dumb people things?
It's funny. We, as well as Big Cat Rescue, we know what we house. We know we house some of the most dangerous animals, of course, and we know the risk that we have. And we know that should something go wrong, then not only is a human life at stake, but all the animals' lives are at stake as well. So we're usually pretty good about that. But I think it's the questions that we get that we just kind of go, what? Like, I've answered the phone and somebody wanted to buy one of our tigers and ship it to a restaurant over in some foreign country in Europe so that they could use it to bring people in. And I was like, no, like for so many reasons.
Right.
I had somebody just this week come up, and we're closed. We only do tours on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and they're by appointment, and you have to be on a guided tour. We don't let people just wander around for many reasons. And this guy came up and he was like, oh, I wanted to see him. I said, so sorry, not today. And he said, so do I just walk along the fence when I come? And I said, no, you're guided by a tour guide, and you learn about the species information, how the animal came to be here. And he said, okay, well, what about petting them? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, no, I'm not even going to play with you. Absolutely not. I told my boss, I said, I'll know my job is done when nobody asks me to bring a tiger to the event I'm tabling or something like that.
Absolutely.
And I'm not there yet, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have a long way to go in that department. I don't know what it is about people and animals and just not.
Because they can. Because they've seen that they can. Because people tell them it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hopefully as we move away from like the circuses and the shows and those kind of things, that will help to get better.
Yep. Sorry.
Someone agrees.
Yeah, no worries.
I don't know where our podcast is.
I know.
Of all the shows he should be on here.
Yeah, this is the one.
This is the one. I don't know. But you know what he's doing right now? He's napping. And I heard that that's something that maybe you like to do.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, I listened to a few of your other podcasts and I was like, oh my God,
they put her to sleep.
No. They asked I was like, they're going to ask me what my hobbies are. I don't have any hobbies. I have no hobbies. I go to work and I come home, and then somebody was like, will you? So I have done a number of half marathons, triathlons, that kind of thing. And somebody was like, well, what about that? And I was like, no, I'm still tired from my last one 3 years ago. So I don't do that right now. And so it was, what I realized is I used to do that so that I could take a nap and have an excuse to do that. And then I realized I don't have to do that to take a nap. I can just take a nap. So
that's funny. Oh my gosh.
I can imagine taking those phone calls and dealing with the public would make me tired.
Right? Yeah. So I look forward to my weekend so I can take a nap. Yeah, I love to nap.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
They were all like, yeah, you like to nap. That's okay. I was like, I don't write anything. I'm such a cliche. I watch true crime and I take naps. So that's what I do.
Own it.
Yeah. You're in good company. I mean, Laura yawns when she exercises in general. So I think,
right. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
I guess wrapping up here, where can people find you? Where can people, if they want to support the organization, where can they reach out to you?
Here he is.
Hey, there it is. Toby returns.
You see why I called him Baby Tiger now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's impressive. Where's my attention?
Right.
So CarolinaTigerRescue.org is the best place to find all of our stuff. Also following us on Facebook and Instagram is a fun way to stay involved. We do tours on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. No, you don't get to pet our animals. But what we find is you can go to a zoo and the learning and the education is very passive, and that's fine. But you can look at a zebra called a giraffe and nobody's going to tell you anything different, right? So you got to read the sign. Whereas for us, we are very much as a nonprofit trying to fix a problem. And to do that, we do that through education. And so when you come, you are on a guided tour. We're going to tell you, of course, species information, but more importantly, we're going to tell you why that animal needs us and why more animals need us and how we can solve that problem. And right now, of course, with everything that's going on, hopefully, fingers crossed soon that it will get back to some semblance of normalcy. But we're doing virtual tours as well, where you get to hang out with me and I go out and introduce people to some of our cats and they get to ask questions and all that. And that's been really fun. I've been able to connect with people in Colorado and up in New York and Arizona and all that. So even if you're not nearby, that may be something that you want to check out. Yeah, we have a great supporter actually in Australia, which is super fun to hear from them. And so it's pretty cool that it's made us rethink how we do things, which is not a bad thing. And so, there's different ways to stay involved, and donations, of course, are always needed. But one of our big things too is, learn about us and then hopefully tell people about us and the problem that we're trying to solve so that we can eventually move in a different direction and change what we do to help solve another problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Katie. We really
absolutely
could talk to you for like the next 7 hours. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me.
It's great to meet you. Thanks so much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
That's our show. Thanks so much, Katie, for joining us today. It was so cool to learn a little bit more about the zoo industry and what you do. Please be sure to check us out every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Bye.
See you, everybody.